So going straight into it then. So what you have essentially is an amazing set of resources which all about learning through play, about physical development. And what you'll find on the market is, lots of pegs, in various shapes and sizes, square, triangular, ones with very large tops on them. Our specially designed peg is very good at developing the handwriting tripod grip, which is very key for early development, because children are lacking nowadays is the ability to develop a handwriting grasp efficiently, because they're spending a lot more time using graphics tablets, using phones and screens, and swiping with just a finger is not this. It's not building that dexterity enough. And this is a very good tool for making up that lost time and making sure that these children actually do develop the right skills. And of course, in the nursery, it's all about learning through play. But what we're going to do with this is just by playing with these pegs, you actually hold it within the tripod grasp just by design. And you place it into these foam balls, okay, and there's resistance. So the key here is that it then builds the wrist and the arm strength when they push these pegs in. So if you've already been using the boards, no doubt the children have been doing that already. So that's half of what this is all about. So it's really nice that, you'll find that children just make big towers and stack the pegs, and that's exactly what we want them to do, particularly at that early age. What I'd like to do is show you how this is used through preschool, and of course, that will be very applicable to you at the early stages, into reception, into year one, so into primary school, and so you really understand what this is about in those early years of education, and how that links to what you'll be doing in the nursery with the 3-year-olds. So what I want to just cut straight to is a video on the pegs to paper, and here you see much of what I've said before is children stacking pegs, and exactly the way you'll be using it in the nursery through free play. What this now will lead into is a short clip by Lucy Watson. Happens to be actually an ITV presenter, and she fell in love with the resources last year, and this is proof. During the first lockdown, she actually used this resource for homeschooling with her son, and she covers all of the basics very, very well. So I want to just play this little short clip, and she explains the benefits of using this with her son. And she actually uses the resources for the early stages of step 1. So she's copying patterns. It's a little bit ahead of what you'll be doing in the nursery, but it gives you a good flavour.
Homeschooling is not what I ever thought I'd be doing or be any good at. But in the past few weeks, I've been thrown in the deep end like so many other mums and dads. But being able to help teach Sid a real life skill that will go on to become the most natural thing in the world to him, hopefully, is actually really exciting for me.
How many pegs have you put in?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You have. And have you put them on the right or the left hand side?
Right. Left.
That's the left. And what hand did you use?
Left hand.
And then the right, yes.
I can see for myself that I'm building his vocab, his handwriting technique, his fine motor skills, and his spatial awareness. Just the way he takes the peg in his left hand and then passes it to the right. I now know that it's engaging his whole brain, and that ultimately helps him learn. So the way the peg is designed actually helps him develop the right grip for handwriting. And then when he goes on to put the pegs in the board, it means he's building strength in the muscles in his hand. And then when I ask Sid to tell me what he's actually done with the pegboard, I'm helping him develop his language as well. And I'm actually learning something myself too. It never occurred to me, probably because it comes as second nature to all of us, that most letters need us to draw them in an anti-clockwise direction. And that's why you then get him to draw the circles afterwards, so he can get good at forming his letters the right way round. I guess what I love seeing most is that learning seems to be really, really fun for him. And I feel quite proud that I am actually helping him learn something that's so critical to his development and ultimately his future.
Please, can I do the pet game again? Please.
Right now?
Yes.
There you go. So that's Lucy's son really enjoying those activities. And so what you have is your exploratory pack. So what we're doing is really just giving you the apparatus for the children to create those towers, play with the pegs. I'll show you a little bit about A/B patterns and patterning as well, which is really good, and extended patterns, and some of the math resources as well, the basic activities that you'll be doing. But this is what this leads into. And if children can really master that grip and get hands-on with the apparatus, when they start using that later on, it's going to really help. And Saba, for the preschool children, that's the kind of activities that you could start to do with the children, because that was a 4-year-old child there, the perfect age there to match in. And it's very simple to add on to the resources you have to include the cards, because what you can do, as I'm going to share my screen again, I will show you. This is our website. And if you click the blue button up here and head down to Page to Paper, you get information, and there are 3 resources to download. We actually have 3 steps to Page to Paper. There's a larger board and there's a lacing board as well. But we're talking about step 1. And this goes with the resources you already have with the 5x5 boards, open PDF or download PDF. And you can print these off free of charge just to add to your set. So the reason you don't have those cards in your packs is because it's purely for exploratory play for the nursery children. But with this, it's great for the preschool children. And as you can see here, much like you saw in that video, it's about listening to the instruction, carrying that out onto the board, okay? So you're learning to take instruction, learning to physically do it and work on the physical development. You say what you've done, that builds the language development, and then draw. So then what they practice a circle, copying their patterns. A circle is essentially our most important shape, an anti-clockwise circle for letter structure, because an A, a C, an E, a D, everything employs that basic shape. So if you can master a circle, that will really help your cursive script later on. And so then you have access to all these cards, and it gives you all of the things you can say with the children. So this is a way to extend what you've got in your set for the preschool children. So we highly advise that. But stepping back then, if you look at what you've got just to play with, we've given you, because it's the exploratory pack, we've stripped down the number of colours. Rather than giving you all of the 10 colours available in our range, we give you the favourites. So we give you the 5 primary and then the pink. And they're the favourite colours that children always love to play with the pegs. So that's what you have in your set. Then you have these 5x5 boards, as you saw in the video, and you have a larger 10x10 board as well, included in the sets. But these are brilliant for patterning. So A/B patterns are really important for early algebraic thinking, those early stages of mathematics. If you start a pattern and ask a child to extend it, if you start making the pattern and ask them to keep extending it, if they can execute that, you know that they've really understood patterning, and this is a really important thing for early mathematics. These actually link together, so you can link these boards and create long lines. And with the number of boards you have, you can do quite long lines. It's really nice, and you're smiling now. I bet you've seen that already with the children doing that, because that's another thing that children gravitate towards. It's really nice, and that's a really nice way to extend the patterns even further. So it makes it really interesting. And the nice thing about the way these pegs stack is that you can make those A/B patterns more interesting by doubling up and then using a single, for example. Another great thing about these boards is you can do reflective symmetry. So if I take 2 of these shapes, I can work out, okay, well, how do I orient this? Oh, I think it goes that way. And if your symmetrical lines down the middle, that would be your reflective symmetry. So that's another really fun activity for children to play with. And one child could make one pattern, and you can ask another child, well, can you make the same pattern if there's a reflective line? Or can you just copy a pattern? So even if it was just the same pattern, you know, copied over. Or can you make a different pattern? Let's stitch them together. Let's see how many colours there are. And if you notice in the activities that Lucy was using for her preschool age child, even for the 3-year-olds, you can use this as an excuse to develop that language. So you can point and count and say, what colour is this peg here? You can say it's red. Okay, how many red pegs do I have on the board? I've got 1, 2. You can just do very, very basic mathematics. It's really good for that as well. And speaking of mathematics, moving on to the pegs to count up board that you have, the frame. This is a really great resource because what we have is bamboo rods underneath here. And before I get those out and show you here, I'm actually going to move you on to another video. Again, this is going to show you how this is intended to be used for the early stages of primary, when, or indeed preschool, which was teaching children basic mathematics. And again, I'm going to talk about how we can use this more basically for the 3-year-olds. So here we have reception class, and the board is used in the centre of the table. It's very good because it's such a large resource, very vibrant and colourful and visual. You can get a series of children around the table, and they can all engage with one apparatus at once. So the practitioner uses this as a prop to guide the child. And at the moment, the practitioner is asking, okay, so what do I have here? What numbers are these? And of course, they're color coded to represent different numbers, much like other resources in maths, and actually match the Numicon system, which is really handy as well. And so you see here the comparison of the two. And what we can do is one more. So I'll just play this little clip here.
The entire group benefit from one pupil's discovery, as the knowledge is now shared. This also helps to close the gap between the fast learners and those who may require more support. The linear rods and pegs with their colour scheme help the children to clearly grasp the concept that 9 is 1 more than 8.
You see there that you can see that one rod at the top on top of the 8 now matches the 9. So this adds such an important differentiation between Numicon, which is something similar in the marketplace, but this is a linear system, whereas Numicon, it has their useful shapes and it's a fantastic resource. Being linear, we can see this step up very clearly. So this is actually easier for the youngest children to understand. And I'm going to now show you how this can be used on this board. So let's take my giant board out. And again, you've got lots of these giant boards in your pack as well. And here we have the board made up. Now, with this basic pack, you don't get all 10 colours. It's not really about using all of the pegs in these rods as such, but using these rods on their own. You can turn these over and show those colours very clearly. So you can isolate just a few colours that go with the corresponding colour to make 10, the number bond. But these pieces, they fit inside the board, and they don't fit anywhere but where they belong. So the benefit also of having it within this frame, this 100 square frame, means that children, without even realising, just playing with these pieces, they learn their number bonds to 10 because they're fitting it together like a puzzle. So it's really, really useful like that. And it's just so large. It's a lovely, large, vibrantly coloured apparatus. So multiple children can play with that board. So it makes it really useful for early mathematics. And again, as you can see how it's being used in the primary school, and indeed, again, Sabo using it for the preschool children, you can use some of the pegs and do a bit more focused activities using the rods with the pegs inside. But you can see how it's going to evolve and be used there. But just by children playing with this and fitting it into this board, it's going to be great for that development. Another great thing about these rods is that they can actually be used with the pegs inside this frame, of the EVA foam board. Again, that resistance, building that handwriting grip, and you can actually stack on top and create towers. So not only can you create your towers just with the pegs, but you can actually create the towers with the rods as well. And again, it's very clear, because it's a linear system, very clear that nothing's going to go in this space but another one, because nothing else would fit. So we can just place the one on top of here. The children learn intrinsically their number bonds of 3, 2, and 1. And again, the colour scheme helps with that as well. But the chunky and tactile nature of this apparatus is so good for children's dexterity and their understanding. And it just makes it so much more fun. Some resources you get are so small and they don't really lend themselves as much to free play, particularly for mathematics. But this is what does so well. Another great thing about this board and the pieces in it, it's made from bamboo, which is an amazing natural resource for the planet. I mean, the grass stalk that this was cut from, bamboo stalk, that's still alive today. So that has been grown, and that will harvest more bamboo, and you can keep cutting that down. It will keep reproducing more for more production, and it's very, very fast growing. So if you're taking other woods from forests, the deforestation levels go through the roof. But if you're using more bamboo, it's so much better for the environment. And not only is that, it's very, very hard wearing and very durable, particularly because of the carbonisation process we put this through. So why am I telling you this? Well, it's nice to know you've got an eco-friendly material, but also it's so hard wearing, so you know it's going to last in your environment. So again, these pieces can be taken out and used independently. Okay, so it's very, very good for just playing with and stacking these pieces up. So it's a really, really nice resource for extended play. Another thing you have in your sets is your playboards. Now these have been a Nexus favourite for 20 years. I mean, these are just...
It's definitely one of my favourites.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's great fun. Yeah.
Well, a portion of them always end up in the offices, I think, with the practitioners and the teachers and I think that they're great for pinning to the walls and writing messages. But again, these are really eco-friendly because what you have is a pen. You can thread the lace through the back and a little bit out the front, about the tip, about a centimetre there, enough of the lace so that it can be pushed into the board. And then the reason why it's eco-friendly is because I can make a picture, pull it away, and use it over and over again. But children absolutely love making patterns with these boards. And as you can see, we've got the black versions with the fluorescent laces, and then we have the white ones with the traditional colour laces as well. And the lovely thing about these is you can stitch them together. So much like with the linking pegboards, with like these, where these stitch together, and children can create independent patterns and then bring them together for cooperative play. These are much the same because, George, can I pass you your
Oh, George, yeah.
That's fine.
I can do it if you want.
Oh yeah, George will do it.
Yeah, why not? I've got this on my lap.
As you can see, what George is doing, she's just stitching those together, and then you can create big pictures for these. So you can either start with a big canvas that children can all join in with, or you can just give each child their own board and then ask them to put it together at the end. But this is really good for building their dexterity in their finger strength. Thanks, George. As you can see it very clearly there, they stitch together. And the black and white contrast really well as well.
Yes, nice, yeah.
But this is really good for their dexterity. In pegs to paper, as it's used in the preschool setting and in reception year 1, we have a very similar apparatus which is used for building cursive script, and they follow specific patterns. And what they do is they copy those lines onto the dot sheets, much in the same fashion as you saw in that video earlier on. So again, this is great for prepping them for further extension activities later down the line. And it's combined, using it in the nursery setting to using it in preschool and reception in year 1 in primary. All of that combined, starting at the age of 3. If this process is done, children's handwriting ability, their reading ability, and their linguistic skills are so much more increased. And it really does tackle this issue, as I mentioned in the beginning, of children using lots of more technology, tablets, keyboards, and it's a controlled way of building their fine motor skills. And they're just lovely, colourful, enjoyable resources. Yeah. And it's always a nice thing to bring these out at playtime for the children. It's like we've shown you. The key here is that much of this can be done through leaving the child to explore the resources on their own. But from what I've shown you today, hopefully you've got a few ideas about how you can guide them. So, for example, you can, just to say one more, you can take all of the pieces out of this board and ask them, and take the blue board out as well. So you have a black 100 square frame underneath, and ask them to fill the board. Simply just fill the board. You know, ask a couple of children to work together, and they'll puzzle it together. Ask them about the colours. Ask them about, well, how many holes does that piece have? And then you can start building that early mathematics. But that's, you know, 20% of what you'd be doing maybe with your 3-year-olds. The rest of the 70% is just children playing on their own. Because as we know, free play is so important for building their understanding. And that pretty much rounds up your resources that you have. And I hope that explains that a bit further.